Will women walk all over you if you let them? The short answer is yes. The long answer is yes, but their motivations are not what you think they are most of the time. And that leads me into the two reactions that you don't want to have to me saying that. One is naive, and no, that's not true. This is cynical. If she's a good girl, she won't do that. That's wrong. It has some truth to it, but like a lot of half-truths in dating, it's either unhelpful or it can actually actively hurt you because you are not recognizing things that will happen pretty much all the time when you're dealing with romance. The other bad reaction that you should not have is, yeah, of course they are. Like, that's obvious. Women are out to get you and they're going to castrate you and cuck you and fuck you over and, fuck women. That's also not the reaction that you want to have, okay? They're too extreme, and they are not complete understandings. If you were to actually take bits and pieces of these mindsets and then put them together, you would have something close to the truth. So let's go over those two. Well, first let's go over the truth and then how that plays in with these overreactions, right? So the truth is that women will walk all over you. Now, what that will mean can be two different universes, right? Between women, because of course the woman's character plays a large role in this, right? That's where the guy is somewhat right, where he says, well, if she's a good woman, she won't. He's correct in that a woman's character will determine what that actually means. It'll determine the lengths by which she will walk all over you and what that'll actually mean, right? For one woman, walking all over you will mean cheating on you and, putting you down and making you the shell of the man that you are. For a different woman, it'll just mean she's a little bit more rude, a little bit more disrespectful, not as lovey-dovey, not as submissive, etc. Right? Now, I use that word submissive, and some people are already like, oh, well, this guy is whatever. Here's the truth. The interplay between men and women is, to some extent, not the full extent, right, is to some extent a fun little contest for dominance, okay? Now, the woman wants to lose the wrestling match, so to speak, right? It doesn't need to be seen in the PvP, hardcore, super competitive mindset that some people have when you hear them talking about, women being submissive and men being dominant, right? They kind of take it as really, really an intense conflict. You need to see it more as this kind of fun little game that women are hoping that you win because that's going to make them feel secure around you and it's going to make them horny. Because women get wet from men who they feel submissive around. This is just an undisputable fact from experience, right? Now, does this mean women can't date men who are submissive, who are that dominant? Yes, they can, and of course they can have sex with him and literally get wet, right? I'm not saying it's impossible for them to get wet, unless you're fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger. And that guy that's not even necessarily what dominant is, right? Because here's another thread. When I say dominant, guys think, oh, you have to be, no, that's not necessarily dominance. In fact, a lot of times that can be overcompensation, and the pursuit of hypermasculinity, but really it's a bit of a glaring weakness in their personality, right? This can get really in depth. But women won't get as excited about a man that they don't feel submissive towards, okay? And that doesn't mean that this dominance needs to be hateful. It doesn't need to be disrespectful. It doesn't mean that you have to think that she's lesser than you. You're just dominant over her in the romantic sexual context. Now that's going to have a lot of extensions because of that, right? She's going to follow your lead. She's going to want you to make decisions from the mundane to the very serious. She's going to kind of default to you unless, of course, something's super important to her, right? And then she's going to stand up for herself. And hopefully she has the self-respect and self-esteem to stand up for herself when something's not right. And she should put you in line when you do cross boundaries, right? If she's sitting around just saying yes to everything, well, then she's a fucking idiot, right? And in most situations, the guy's a piece of shit, okay? A good woman will help you and challenge you when it actually will be a benefit, right? Not some bitchy little fucking Karen who's just nagging you all the time, right? Whenever we talk about things, we have to understand contexts, right? Because then right now when I say that statement, oh, she should stand up to you, then, the guys who are hardcore are like, no, she's going to make you your bitch, you're a little fucking bitch. My woman's in line all the time. Any man who says that is lying to you, right? There's no relationship on this earth where a woman does not at some point talk back to the man, does not any guy who tells you that that's how his relationship run is either the most ruthless psychopath or is a fucking liar, okay? And even in the cases of the ruthless psychopath, he's probably just lying about he might be a psychopath, but even psychopaths will make mistakes and not be totally dominant because that presumes, perfect intelligence and knowing how to manipulate people and shit. But we're not trying to manipulate someone. We're not trying to hurt anyone. We're trying to have a relationship with someone, which means that we're helping each other. We're looking out for the best for each other. And we're going to play our roles. The man's going to play his role. The woman's going to play her role. But a good woman is going to let her voice be known. And if she's a woman worth dating or marrying, then you're going to heed her suggestions and advice and thoughts. Not only because you love her, but because if she's actually a woman worth being with, then she's going to have something wise to say. If she doesn't, you married a fucking retard, right? And you probably should have higher standards. And then I wouldn't take your advice seriously, right? There's a lot of simple rebuttals to a lot of these extreme ideas, and the people watching this might come from a completely different spectrum, right? One person watching this will totally understand the nice part of what I'm saying, right? And go, yeah, that makes sense. But then as soon as I say the kind of hardcore shit, they're gonna go, whoa, that's a bit edgy, bro. And then the guys who are on the edgier side of the things that I'm talking about, they're gonna be like, yeah, when I say certain things, and then when I say other things, you're gonna be like, oh, that's not true, right? I'm not agreeing with either side. We can call one side red pill and one side blue pill if you want, but those are, really complicated camps, I guess. I'm interested in the truth, right? So wherever the truth is, that's where I want to be. And the truth is where the goodness is going to be, right? Where integrity is. But it's also going to be where efficiency is, where actual results lie, right? And so when you go to these extremes of blue pill and red pill, you usually find some efficacy, and then you find a lot of bullshit that doesn't work, right? Because they're kind of taking everything in groups rather than piece by piece. This works, right? So going back, right, women do want a man that is dominant, right? It's just in their nature. I should do a video on the nature of masculinity and femininity and the interplay and what values can be defined as masculine and feminine, right? I'm not going to go too much into that in this video because then we'll just get too digressed. But yeah, I don't want to get sidetracked. So we're going to just take that as a assumed premise, okay, that women want to feel submissive around a man, okay? Because of that, right, you want to resist any time where a woman is starting to dominate you. Now, what does that actually mean? What does it mean for a woman to walk all over you? Right? I'll give you a few instances of small things and then big things, right? So some small examples of a woman walking all over you is talking to you in a dismissive tone, ignoring your ideas and your advice, she's not super lovey-dovey and cutesy around you. That's more of a behavioral thing. That's starting to show that she's not seeing you as this dominant figure, right? Where she's like doting on you, okay? You're not having a lot of sex, because usually if you're not having a lot of sex, unless you're just not initiating it for some reason, but if you're trying to initiate it and she's not desiring you, that usually means, it can mean other things. It doesn't just mean she's walking all over you, okay? It can mean she doesn't feel loved. It can mean she doesn't feel sexy, right? There's a lot of different ways that she can be turned off. But it is possible that if you see this symptom, that it is this disease of her starting to lose respect for you. But there are multiple causes of these symptoms, just like with actual symptoms and diseases, right? Different diseases can have similar symptoms, but this is one of them, right? And it's because a lot of what women feel as lust, because of the nature of masculinity and femininity, is pretty much just respect. Like the same thing you will respect a man for and look up to him, like, oh man, I really admire that guy. When a woman sees that, it'll actually transform into lust, right? So if she's not really horny, if she's not really doting, if it doesn't feel like she's being very feminine around you, right? We have to define what that means, I guess, but some of you just kind of intuitively fucking know what the hell I'm talking about, right? Sometimes I'm a little bit too nerdy, but then when you aren't nerdy, and then people don't understand things, you have to try and appeal to as wide a range of audience as possible, right? That's very difficult, but I'm doing my best here. So, just she's not being feminine. She's not being lovey-dovey, doting, horny. She's not listening to you. She's not seeking your guidance. If it gets more extreme, right, it's just a lack of that. Then if it gets more extreme, it actually turns into like being genuinely disrespectful or kind of dismissive or ignoring you. And then on the very extreme ends, it's like she's actually actively trying to put you down. Like she's going out of her way to be spiteful and rude and disrespectful, or like flirting with someone else. And then obviously to the extremes of like cheating on you and such. Right? So it's a large spectrum, where the ideal state is where, of course, a woman is her own autonomous being, but for the most part, she's very doting and loving and submissive around you. And generally just does what you want and actually goes out of her way to serve you, right? That's usually a good sign that you're not in this state where she's starting to walk all over you. But now you have to ask yourself, okay, well, why would women even walk all over you in the first place, right? Some guys kind of wish they were in this like perfect world where there weren't problems. If you believe that, that's a very naive viewpoint, and you need to get rid of it as soon as possible. Okay, like, oh, I just wish No, you have to be worthy of her submission, right? You cannot just expect her to be submissive to you, or, be the kind of girl you want simply because that's what you will, right? You desire it. It's a stupid belief, and it's a wrong belief, and it'll never happen, okay? And a woman should not be with you if you have that viewpoint, because it counteracts the very reason why she's with you. Her femininity is driving her to be around someone who is masculine and dominant. And this idea of like, oh, could I just not deal with this? Oh, this is so stressful. That's pussy behavior, okay? And you are not worthy of being a leader. It's just a typical thing in life. People want the results. They want the fruits. They want the money. They want the girls. They want the cars. They want the this, but they don't want to have to work for it. Why? Why are you so special? You're not, okay? Just like everyone else, you have to work for it. Certain people might start with some advantages, right? But of course, to me, as a Buddhist, you start with those advantages because you have previous karma, right? So nothing is free. There is no such thing as free lunch. Everything is earned. You get exactly what you deserve at every moment of every point in time, okay? But you have to earn shit, okay? And the interplay between men and women is fundamentally about a woman wanting a man who she can just relax around. She feels safe around him physically. She feels safe around him emotionally, mentally. She feels like he could handle her. Not like in this dumbass Marilyn Monroe fucking one of the stupidest quotes I've ever heard in my goddamn life. If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. On a certain level, it's a true statement, but obviously true statements have undertones, and the undertone of that is I'm a cunt and you did handle my country. When in fact, I don't have to handle anything. If you're a cunt, then you're not worth dating, right? But there is some truth to it, right? Through thick and thin, when things are difficult, you should, get through them, right? So there is some truth to it too. Where the fuck was I going with that? I don't know. Sometimes my digressions take me too far and I lose track of where the fuck I was. Anyways, I'll just start another fucking thread. So, and maybe it'll just come to me, right? So, because of the interplay between men and women, dominant and submissive, women want to feel like they're safe around you, right? And they want to feel emotionally safe, and they want to feel physically safe, and they want to feel like you're as in charge as possible. And when they feel that way, they just get really horny, right? In addition to obviously like being attracted to certain things that you do. But again, like I said, a lot of that attraction has to do with that feeling of comfort and trust and a connection, but also just pure lust, right? Either in your behaviors, in your physical appearance, right? In your aesthetics, certain women have certain preferences, in the way that you treat her, right? Because if you were to treat a guy the way you treat your girl, it would feel disrespectful, right? You're like trying to dominate him. But when a girl's around, kind of like pulling her in, grabbing her ass, pulling her hair, kissing her, right? Just think about sex. If you have any experience with women, you will know that the majority of women like being dominated in bed. It's one of the most easy proofs that women like this interplay of dominance and submission. Now, some idiots will go, oh, well, that's in the bedroom. Yeah, okay. Her fucking entire nature just magically fucking changes when the door closes and the lights go off. She's just a completely different person. No, you fucking moron. That nature is just being revealed. It's always been there. It's just being revealed, right? And so that same desire to have a man bending her over and throwing her around and slapping her around and spitting on her, she desires that everywhere else. Maybe not to that extent, right? Because then that would, cross the bounds of her privacy. She wants privacy. She wants to show that side only to you. She wants a more gentle version of that, right? Lady in the streets, freak in the sheets kind of situation. But she wants that interplay to actually be like happening on some level, right? And if it's not, she's going to be naturally driven to challenge it, right? She's going to be naturally, not by malice. Okay, now, with some women, it will come out as malice. And the reason it will come out as malice in terms of like they want to hurt you because they think you're a pussy, right? If you're weak, this happens with broken women. This is where it gets difficult because some guys will be like, no, my experience tells me that women will try to hurt you. Here's what happens, right? Man isn't dominant. The woman starts to kind of like rustle her feathers a little bit, right? And starts to challenge the man. The man fails. She loses more respect for him and becomes more insecure that he's not strong, okay? Or he passes and then the woman goes back to being submissive and doting and loving and blah, 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 blah. She could do this in all sorts of ways, talking back, flirting with someone, saying no to sex, this and that, right? And seeing how you react. First off, it's not always super conscious. In some cases it is, right? Women can't pretend that they don't know what they're doing sometimes, but not all the time, right? It's not like they're running this they're running a software, but a lot of times it's kind of like in the background, because to assume everything is conscious means that they have perfect awareness of their actions, which most people don't, right? Most people lack self-awareness on a very large level. But she still is going to run that program when she starts to feel insecure in the relationship. But here's the thing. A woman who's broken, it'll turn aggressive and hateful, her testing, because she's been hurt. Okay? And you would think, why is she lashing out at me when I'm the one she's supposed to love? Right? So let's say a woman has a bunch of shitty relationships and gets treated like shit, and then you're a good guy. And let's say you're a decently strong good guy, right? I don't think you should be even in that situation in the first place, right? It's not your job to save people. If she has shitty behavior because she's broken, she should have made better choices, right? And I don't think the responsibility should be on you to fix her. Don't save hoes, okay? But let's say you are in a situation like that. Why does it happen like that? Okay, so same process happens. She starts to kind of like test you. If she gets a sense that you're not up to snuff, the reason why she's going to be so violent with the testing and start to walk all over you is because she's been hurt so much. Her anxiety is going to start to create all of these scenarios where she just doesn't feel safe in general, right? It's not going to make logical sense, right? So we're trying to get into a space that doesn't have clear reasons, right? It's like, I'm this person. Okay, let's say this is the shitty guy and this is you, right? How is she even starting to think I'm anywhere near here because I haven't done anything? Like, let's just say you're a little bit weak. You're not a very strong, dominant guy. And let's say she spent a lot of time with shitty guys. Well, here's the unfortunate thing. She's been conditioned to think of dominance in the most primal animalistic ways, which it does have those things, right? It does have those aspects. Dominance can be displayed through, violence and abuse and manipulation and lying and deception and all that horrible shit, right? So pretty much in their mind, a strong man that they lust and then they were fucking them, right? So she was fucking him. That was creating pair bonding and creating like an attachment to that type of masculinity. Well, that's the only thing she really understands, okay? And that's her fault, right? She should have fucking made better decisions. So I'm not alleviating her of any responsibility, okay? She should have had the self-esteem and self-awareness to walk away the moment shit got bad. She was probably conditioned from childhood and all sorts of other bad shit, but tough luck. The world, nobody gets any, people get forgiveness, but they don't get, the responsibility isn't somehow not on your plate, right? We got that taken care of. So we'll just speak facts now. She has a bad experience, but that's her only knowledge of what dominance is. So then you, who is actually a better person, has integrity. But unfortunately, if you don't start to show that very primal sense of dominance, she's going to start to think, her natural feminine tendencies are just going to assume, okay, you're not a man, right? And you're not worthy of me sexually. But because she's been hurt, that anxiety is going to start to build up, and she's going to start expecting violence, not necessarily literal violence, right? I'm not saying, it could be if she was like actually physically abused, right? But it could be emotional. It could be being neglected. It might not be like an aggressive emotional abuse, like, I'm calling you a worthless piece of shit. It could just be neglect, right? And so she will start to just act erratically, okay? And if you don't know how to contain that, it's going to be this mix of like, here's just, people react to trauma in weird ways, right? If you've ever had panic attacks and anxiety attacks, you know that nothing starts to make sense, right? Just random shit just starts to happen in your mind, and you start making the weirdest connections. So that's happening because she's in fight or flight mode. And then there's just this natural mechanism of, okay, man is not being strong and not kind of containing, like disciplining my femininity. And so it just starts getting chaotic as a natural consequence, right? Because she'll just, okay, I'm not attracted to him. Yeah, whatever, da-da-da. But then this fight or flight mode kicks in, and then she goes into the fight part of fight or flight. Or she goes into the flight, and then she becomes super evasive. She's not texting you back. She's, off, I'm going to go spend the night with my friend. We're going to go clubbing and partying, right? She's just running from her problems, right? And usually when people run from their problems, they're chasing pleasure. Right? So you're dating broken girl, you get into a fight, she freaks out, she's going to go party with her friend. And let's just do like horrible scenarios. She gets drunk, fucks some random guy, feels bad about it the next day, comes to you crying, this and that, right? Not justifying it. I'm just saying that's the sequence of events that happens, right? Or She takes the fight approach, right? Fight or flight. She takes the fight approach and she just starts like demeaning you and disrespecting you and screaming at you and insulting you and this and that. And that might also turn into like a purposeful, I'm going to go fuck some other guy, right? But not necessarily. It could just be the abuse part, right? But then here's what happens. If you can't stand up for yourself in any of those situations, if you don't know how to handle them, and you have to approach the fight or flight differently, right? If you can't handle that correctly, it's just going to exacerbate the problem, right? Because when it comes to that primal respect thing that underlies lust, when it comes to women testing you, at that point, you have to have integrity, right? Morality should never be violated. But the actual attraction itself, the lust part of it, is not, it doesn't have anything to do with morality. It only has to do with strength, right? But the other aspects of attraction, there's 3 aspects of attraction: love, lust, and trust. The other ones do have a lot of like being moral, being nice, being kind, whatever, will actually increase these forms of attraction. And they are forms of attraction. They may not be what you want. Like someone who's high in trust gets friend zoned, right? Someone who's high in love, but maybe not the others, he's put in a boyfriend zone, right? And guys who are fuckboys are strongly lust based, but maybe not trust based, right? So they'll fuck, girls will fuck them, but then not trust them, right? But this lust part doesn't really have to do a lot with morality. It has to do with this dominance factor we're talking, right? But these trust and love parts do have a lot of, showing moral behavior and kindness will actually increase those levels of attraction. Think of them as like levers. But when it comes to like just putting a girl in line, it's not really about morality. You should do it in a moral way, right? The highest level of dominance is moral dominance, is dominance with integrity, right? Not yelling at her, not this, not that. I mean, sometimes this like cold anger, if a girl's like being disrespectful to you, is like, I don't appreciate that. Well, no. Look, if you're going to keep acting like this, I'm going to go in the other room and you can come get me when you're ready to talk like a fucking adult. But right now, this tonality, this bullshit you're doing, I'm not about that shit. So, let me know and walk away. That kind of tone, body language, behavior, that is much stronger than any other kind of dominance there is. The problem is most guys don't have that in them, right? They may have it in them sometimes, but for the most part, they'll either, they'll fall into extremes, right? Extreme weakness or overcompensation of strength, right? Where they're cruel, where they're unkind and, emotionally or verbally abusive, or they choose to try and do what some people used to call dread game. It's really fucking shitty. Where you kind of just like, you do what, what's the term? You have the attachment styles. There's one of them. I forgot what it's called. Avoidant, right? They start to do avoidant behaviors. Or they just like won't respond. They'll block their own girlfriend, or they'll just like disappear, right? And that causes the other person to chase after you, right? Because as long as they care a little bit, then it works, right? These behaviors can work. That's what's the sad thing, is because they'll still trigger these attraction levers, right? And unfortunately, because they work, sometimes people will, do them. The men will do them and the women will be attracted to it because they don't fucking know any better, right? But I think that speaks largely to people's character, right? If a woman is attracted to that kind of thing, it's very hard not to in some ways, at least on a lust level. But if she doesn't have the self-esteem and self-respect to resist it and to find something better, that's a mark against her, I think. So when women date these really shitty guys, be a better fucking judge of character, right? And men, they're just guilty of being pieces of shit. Usually they end up getting their just desserts, right? If not, karmically later in life or in the next life, they do eventually fuck up, right? They will eventually push a person too far. They will eventually, um, you know, um, their mask will drop and the woman will kind of see, because a lot of times, people think like, oh, well, why do women put up with guys being shitty? Well, here's kind of what they do. Part of their like up and down emotional roller coaster is they'll be really shitty, but then they'll be really nice. Because if you're just pure shitty, or go down, if you're just pure shitty, the woman will just resent you and realize you don't care about you and leave. How these men kind of create emotional roller coaster where they're really shitty, but then they're like, oh, I'm sorry, baby, and da-da-da. And they show a lot of love and this and that, or they'll use sex, which creates very strong pair bonding, right? And they'll be really sweet, and they'll be like, I hope you can forgive me and this and that. And it'll make the girl think, oh, okay, well, he loves me. And in some ways, it'll justify everything that happened, right? But you don't know that until you start to look behind the scenes and observe how these horrible, shitty men actually do relationships. Or you look at your own relationships, and you probably do smaller degrees of what they do, right? Obviously, not to that extent, right? But everyone has issues. Everyone has said something cruel or unkind or, ignored someone they cared about. Everyone has played these games on some level, right? And if you look at how they actually work as a fundamental system of causation, you can understand why the extremes of these behaviors can be very effective. But they're only effective in short term. They cause big spikes, right? And they have a lot more issues in their relationship than they would let you want to believe. Like, I saw this fucking... I didn't want to talk about it. I saw this guy on Twitter, and he was just saying some of the shittiest shit. And he's acting like he's some big pimp with women. But I'm just like, anyone who knows women is going to know you actually are creating a lot of issues in your relationship, right? He's acting like he's king pimp and doing this and that, but I know women, and I know that he's causing a lot of fucking issues, and he has to put up with a lot of fucking drama. So anyways, right, what does this all have to do with, women walking all over you? Well, I'm explaining the principles behind it. I'm explaining why women are driven to even test you in the first place, the results of it, and the consequences of you passing the test or not passing the test, right? So woman starts to get insecure for whatever reason. Anything can trigger it, right? It could be even not necessarily that you're losing, she doesn't respect you. It could actually be a lack of affection. You could actually not be being affectionate enough with her. And if you don't have this healthy dynamic and this healthy, transparent communication set up with your girlfriend or your wife where she can come to you and she will let you know that, hey, could you be a little more affectionate? I mean, it's not always going to be therapy talk, right? It could just be, oh, baby, can you spend a little time with me? Or come give you kisses, right? You're playing your game in your room or doing something. She comes give you a kiss and then comes back 10 minutes later and gives you another kiss, right? She's looking for affection, right? So it could be something as simple as that. And if you're not giving her what she's looking for, then she might start to act out, right? Looking all huffy puffy and what's wrong, baby? Nothing. What's wrong, baby? Nothing, right? And the way that you fail those tests is by getting upset, right? Getting whiny, like, oh, right? Or you try to have sex with her, and she's like, no, I'm not feeling it tonight, and be like, oh, okay, right? Even if you don't verbally whine, women can tell. Women can know how you're reacting within the moment, right? So getting whiny, giving up, getting angry, right? Getting angry is only useful when she has started to test you, but now her testing, her rebelling, is starting to get into the realm of disrespectful. That's the only time when anger is, and you should only get angry proportional to how disrespectful she's being. And then ignoring it, like not even trying, right? Just like, whatever. That's not good either. Okay, because it just looks like you don't give a shit. Because she's causing an issue for a reason, right? The workers in the factory are complaining to the fucking boss for a reason, and they need to have their concerns heard and dealt with. Because at the end of the day, even though you're dominant and you're the leader, in some ways you're still serving her. right? I think it's been a while since I've read it, but Hegel, he's a philosopher. He has the master-slave dynamic, and I remember him arguing something along the lines of, correct me if I'm wrong, but that like the master-slave dynamic does have to do with power, but like the master is in some way a slave to the slave because he is serving the people, right? Like a king is, yes, he's in charge, right? Like, let's not get that twisted either. Let's not turn it into like pure philosophical mumbo jumbo. Like, you're the man, you're in charge, she's submissive. That's clear, right? But still, in some way, you are serving her. And the reason why you're in charge is because the woman trusts you with that power, right? And when she starts to rebel, it's because she's losing a little bit of trust in that. And the reason she's losing that trust in your power is because you are starting to make her think that you don't have her best interest in mind. You're not strong enough to deliver those interests that are in her mind. Or you're not actually sure how to deliver them, right? Either you're incapable of delivering them, you don't know how because you're not actually delivering them, or you just don't care about her, right? And all of them are bad. And they all have to do with, right, lacking this love angle. It's meaning you don't understand her. Like, you don't know what she wants, right? The trust thing is about, like, you just not having her best interest in mind. Like, you don't even give a shit, right? And then the lust thing is her not thinking you're capable. So it has to do with that respect thing, right? So you have to find the problem. Like, why is she walking? Like, why is she starting to rebel, right? Or why is she starting to throw hissy fits and this and that, and, or just kind of have an attitude? You need to find out on what level is it. Is it a connection-based thing, a love-based thing? Okay, she's having trouble. Like, you're not giving her what she wants because you're not giving her, like, she needs this kind of behavior or this kind of thing, or, she needs you to help her with this, or, take out the trash more because that's what she's struggling with personally. She doesn't feel like, you're giving your part of the relationship, because, and now you have kids, or she's busy with work and this, that, and just doing something that small will show her that you actually care about her, right? This can take 1,000 different forms. That you can't deliver what she actually needs, you're incapable of doing it. A lot of times, actually, I'll be completely honest with you, is actually sex-based. A lot of problems in relationships, you probably don't understand this, are actually about lack of sex and lack of good sex. Now, what happens, though, is it's a self-perpetuating cycle. Because you're not fucking her good, she starts to get upset, and that makes her less horny for you, and then that lowers the chances that you're going to be able to fuck her good, and then it just fucking creates the same problem, and it's just this fucking keg barrel of fire, right? And it's just exploding and then lighting itself on fire. A woman getting fucked really good is one of the biggest signs of a healthy relationship, because it shows that, like, she's desiring sex with you and having sex with you, meaning there aren't too many problems. And then the sex is also good and satisfying her. So it's a self-perpetuating cycle of goodness for the relationship, right? One of the simplest ways to know the health of a relationship is look at the sex life. Obviously, there's more to it, but it's a large part of it, because sex is the cornerstone of every relationship, because it is the distinguishing factor of any relationship. Simple argument: why aren't you married to your best friend? Because you're not attracted to him. You are literally with her because you're attracted to her. It's not the only thing, but it's the primary thing, because it is the sole reason why men and women are together. Of course, in case of except in situations where people are gay, right? So, and then the trust thing. The trust is where the problem that, like, the shitty guys have, right? She'll respect his really awful dominance, and she might on some level think that, because he says he loves her and cares about her and blah blah blah, but she lacks trust for him, because she doubts if really deep down he actually cares about her, right? So the trust, like, not having affection thing is actually really highly focused on trust. She doesn't trust you love her anymore. She doesn't trust that you care about her. She doesn't trust that you have her best intentions in mind. So find where the problem is by talking to her, right? And press 1,000 times if you have to. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Fellas, it's just part of life. You're going to have to do it. You can't escape from it. And like I said, the mentality that, oh, this is so difficult. Oh, yeah. That's a pussy mentality. Now, of course, there are extremes, right? If she's a fucking high maintenance basket case, you probably are dating the wrong person, right? There is a point where something is just stupidly hard. It's not that, you have a victim mentality and aren't willing to work for things. But some guys like high maintenance girls. Some guys, have really chill personalities and they kind of need that high maintenance to kind of keep them, I actually know someone like that. He's a super chill guy. He actually likes having a little bit of a high maintenance girl. Me, I'm the opposite. I'm super passionate and wiry on my own, so I don't put up with high maintenance. No, thank you. But to a certain extent, every woman has some high maintenance to her, okay? So if you really don't want any trouble in your life, then that's fine, right? Just don't date women. But the people on the internet who are like, oh, don't date women, it's a waste of time, you wouldn't be commenting if you were truly, over it. Doth protest too much. The fact that you are whining about it proves to me you actually care and aren't over women. Or else you'd be happy just being not focused on women. You wouldn't be leaving comments on videos about it, right? And the fact that you're even watching videos, it's why is your algorithm giving you those videos? Anyways, total tangent. But back to the whole women walking on you thing, right? If a woman's a good woman, her version of walking all over you is going to be very mild, right? It might lead to her breaking up with you. But if she's a good woman, she's not going to cheat before she does it, right? She's not going to treat you like shit before she does it. She's just going to lose love for you. And, the relationship is going to end. It's kind of just die out, right? But if a woman is broken, or if you were a piece of shit and have pushed her too far, she might, go out of her way to hurt you, right? And I think in some cases when women do hurt men, let's say they cheat, it's not always because of malice. I mean, I think women are telling the truth genuinely when they do say it was a mistake, right? They just got attracted to something in the moment and they lacked discipline. There's no excuse or justification. It's still wrong and you should break up with her immediately. But I don't think it's always out of malice, right? Oh yeah, I'm going to suck this other guy's dick and, my boyfriend's going to be jealous or upset. Some cases it is. But not always. Sometimes it is just a mistake, right? She got too wrapped up in the moment. But it hurts you nevertheless, right? And so you should forgive her, but you should never reconcile with someone who's cheated on you. I think I'm pretty confident to say in 99.999999999% of situations, infidelity should be treated with an iron fist. Just cut the relationship right there. No conversation, no questions, right? Unless you want to know the details, just for the sake of curiosity, when did this happen? How long has it been going on? Just ask the basics and then cut her off, right? No, like I said, forgiveness, because forgiveness is letting go of a burden in your own heart. And that's just has to do with your happiness, right? But no reconciliation, meaning no, this relationship is over and forever. But, a lot of times the biggest fires start as small sparks. The problem is guys don't care enough, or they lose the will to deal with these small fires. If you keep the small fires in relationships from erupting, you'll keep the big forest fire from erupting, because no problems just fucking come immediately out of thin air unless you do something super fucking extreme, right? You're unfaithful to her and she catches wind of it, or something super evil, right? Something super bad. Usually most problems in relationships are little fires here, little fires here, little fires there. But even in a lot of cases, a man's infidelity, it's not just comes out of fucking nowhere. It usually is a slow ramp up of him being dissatisfied, wanting a younger girl, wanting a different girl, right? And then one day, the opportunity presents itself and he cheats. But it didn't just randomly happen one day, right? It was a sequence of events. But yeah, women will walk all over you if you let them, right? But just don't let them. Or if they do walk all over you, okay, you break up with her and you get a different relationship. It's really not that deep, bro, right? Only if you're dealing with like kids and, because even, I guess a divorce if she like takes advantage of you, right? But then fight like hell, right? But you picked a really bad, you have a horrible, like this is where I'm not going to have any, I'm not going to alleviate the responsibility of men. If you marry a girl who tries to empty your bank account and get a bunch of shit, take half the house or take the whole house or this or that, you are a bad judge of character. Like just straight up. And any idiot moron who's like, well, no, she was a great woman, but no, she wasn't. No, she wasn't. And if she really turned that bad, you probably had a lot to do with it. And she really wasn't that good in the first place. Right? But people don't want to admit that they were the fucking retards who picked a horrible person. Right? Because then that would mean taking responsibility. So if you date a woman who tries to fuck you over after it ends, let that be further lessons that you need to be a better judge of character and not just date because it's a hot piece of ass or because it's the first something that, throws a glance your way. Outside of those extreme situations, okay, you break up. Cool. Yeah, it's going to hurt, dude. Like, I'm not an idiot either. I know it's going to fucking hurt when you have that attachment built up. But you need to train yourself to understand that all things are impermanent, bro. Like, everything's going to end. Okay? Like, I literally advise that guys should actually play through a breakup in their mind or a divorce in their mind. Just go through the motions. Think, well, how would I handle it? Da-da-da. Immunize yourself. Use these mental games as like a vaccination of sort. Like play through the worst case scenario happening. How would you? You're never gonna know until you're in it, right? But it's good practice because at some point it is gonna end. Either one of you is going to leave the other person, or one of you is gonna die, right? So practicing impermanence in your mind is always a good thing. So I suggest that you practice it often, and eventually, if you do it well, it can lead you to having detachment. But unfortunately for a lot of guys, if you haven't learned the skill of, being charismatic and funny and cute and knowing how to talk to girls, the reason why breakups and a girl walking all over you can hurt so bad is because you don't think you can replace her. And that causes a scarcity mentality, which ironically makes you worse at handling when a woman does start to create problems in the relationship because you're acting from a place of scarcity, so you won't stand up for yourself. You won't have a strong frame because you have an internal incorrect software running, which is I'm afraid of losing her. Whereas the real viewpoint should be it would be sad to lose her, but I'm not afraid of it. Very huge distinction. But anyways, starting to get a little bit too far into the weeds. Hopefully I've handled it correctly. The TLDR version, yes, women will walk all over you, but depending on the woman's character and how bad you fucked up, that could mean something quite light or it could mean something very extreme. It depends on her character and it depends on your character. But if you picked a woman who was bad or you let things go to shit, that should be a good lesson in how to improve either your character judgment skills or your relationship skills and your communication skills. So, all right, guys. Love you all. Best of luck to you. I hope that you have healthy and happy relationships. And if you don't, well, good thing is you can learn from them. That's the cool thing about life. Even when you fuck up, if you turn it into a good thing in the end, you turn it into wisdom, it's not really a fuck up. All right, cool. Bye.